right. Well, welcome to the show. We just actually recorded another portion that I don't know if it'll ever make it to the web or not, but yeah, I'll reintroduce you. This is my friend from, we were in the MBA program at the University of Rochester together, Sam Savory. I'm very excited to have you on today, for sure. It was like you were definitely one of the people who I think you came from very humble beginnings and worked your way up along the way. I love your career path. I think it's awesome to hear how you started out with no education whatsoever, and you were what was it? You were like basically on. You worked. Was it EMS? Was your first job?
My first job was collecting carts at the grocery
Oh
store.
wow. Okay, man. And that was actually after you graduated high school, or
That was right around high school.
yeah.
I'd worked my way up when I was about 17, 18. I was cutting meat, working at the deli, filling donuts, decorating cakes, doing all that kind of stuff.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
and I was actually originally out of high school. I went to SUNY Brockport for about a year and a half, and then I dropped out because I thought that I could build a career in small town grocery stores.
Oh, okay. Wow. So where did the EMS come into play? When did you start doing that stuff?
So, I mean, healthcare has always been a big part of my life, mostly because of my family and because of my own health issues. I have really bad asthma.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time in the hospital as a child. And so, as a teenager, I was always involved with, the volunteer ambulance. And um, I was giving my grandmother insulin shots when I was a kid. I mean, it was
Yeah.
just always a part of my life. And wanted just because of my academic record in high school, I did very well. I was always pushed to go to medical school, and I never really wanted to go to medical school. I wanted to be an engineer,
Yeah.
but I went to Brockport anyways. Dropped out, worked in a grocery store, wound up going from a small grocery store to a chain, Tops, and finally realized it was a really good friend of mine who said to me, "You're wasting your time." And through networking, got a job at the University of Rochester when I was 19 years old, just coming up on 20, as a per diem microbiology technician.
Wow.
So
Okay.
I was in the lab working with spit and urine.
Nice. Nice. And you eventually, so that was that. Then you made it into EMS after that, or from there you went into
Nursing.
nursing?
So once I paid my dues, at that point I was working a full-time job at the grocery store, and I was working about 30, I don't know, 30 to 36 hours a week at the hospital. So I was doing close to 70 some hours a week. But eventually it earned me a job as a full-time employee in the lab.
Yeah.
And once I became a full-time employee, I was able to use the tuition benefits of the hospital.
Okay. Awesome. And then
So
step into the next roles.
yeah, and that's when I decided to go to nursing school.
Wow. Wow. Good for you. What I love most about a lot of your stories was you have been, I think you said it earlier as we were chatting briefly before, about how you actually, you've held the hands of a lot of people as they basically went into the hereafter, as they passed away. You have been there with a lot of different people, as you've been, that nursing background with your MBA and everything else. You have had these positions at this point that in your career where you really have done pretty much everything in the realm of, I guess, the medical area, and you've done so much, but you have gained so much life experience, I think, being side by side with people at their worst times, working at that cancer center.
Yeah.
And I think I'm amazed by a lot of those stories. And actually, I want to talk to you more about that, I think, in our second segment. But for right now, what is so I guess what has been the dumbest personal finance mistake or choice that you've made, would you say?
Well, I don't. I could say it was that truck I couldn't afford when I was 17,
Yeah.
but I look at those kind of mistakes, and I was a kid. I think the most catastrophic thing I went through was divorce.
Okay.
And when you're married and you're hopeful and you're young and you build a life together, and then when you choose to tear it apart, I think it's a point in everyone's life where you're emotionally vulnerable
Yeah.
and you make the poorest business decisions for yourself that are really going to wind up impacting you for many years to come. And I can only speak from a male's perspective, but I know many men that I've talked to that have gone through divorces. There's quite a recovery time. So
Yeah.
I would have to say that I'm not so sure if it was the decision of mine, but it was just one of those things that didn't work out. But there has to be a way to set yourself better so that, I don't know, that sounds really bad, but the divorce is catastrophic. I mean, it took me a very long time. I would say in the notion of almost 10 years to recover financially from untangling all the things that fell apart during a 7 month to a year process of divorce.
Wow. Wow. And I can only imagine. I haven't had the experience myself, but hearing from a lot of people, it is amazing how much that can affect you. And I know, well, from my personal side of things, I've gotten a lot of really good deals on things from people who are getting divorced.
Yeah, right.
I'm sorry to say. I think I might have taken advantage. Well, not necessarily taken advantage, but you're hard up for the cash.
Yep.
So, and I
And you
know,
don't care.
yeah,
You don't care.
wow,
It's cash and you don't care.
yeah,
You don't want this thing, you don't want that thing because it represents this, it represents that. So there's a lot of emotion and there's a lot of need for money very quickly. So yeah, it's people are desperate during those times in their life.
yeah, for sure, man. So on the flip side of that, hopefully a happier note, what has been one of the smartest personal finance choices you've made?
I would have to say the most smartest financial decision I have made is recently accepting a position at a company that I started working for in September of last year.
Okay,
I did spend most of my working career, like you said, as a nurse in a hospital, and you look at it as almost a mission and almost as self-sacrificing. And when this opportunity came along, one of the things that really resonated with me was something simple my wife said, and that was, for once, do something for yourself and your family. And financially, what this new job has meant is, I can't measure it right now. It's going to allow me to help my children. It's allowing us a better lifestyle. I mean, in every aspect of my life, it's done wonders.
yeah, but it sounds like it was a hard decision at the beginning, as far as
Very hard.
somewhat turning your back on what you had done or what you'd been a part of, I guess, and moving
Yes,
into something new.
I had to be convinced actually
Really,
by
really.
the company. Yeah.
And but the numbers were significant. I mean, it sounds like you said actually it was like double the pay or something like that.
It was absolutely double the pay. And if you
Wow.
add the fringe, it might even be more than that.
Wow. Wow. But it was just hard to turn your back on where you'd been for so long, basically.
Yeah, and the
That's the
people,
way it
the
felt.
relationships you build. I mean, as an administrator, I became very close with a lot of people that reported to me, and and I think to some extent there's some vanity there.
Yeah.
You build something and you want to keep it the way it is, and you want to see it grow. But ultimately, I did have to make the best chance for my decision for myself and my family.
Well, it sounds like a great example. I mean, you don't often think about, you know, I guess leaving behind something that you are so attached to for the better good, and it sounds like you've made the best choice for you and your family at this point, looking back.
Oh, for
So, well, that's great. Those are two great stories. I'm going to continue talking to you in a second part of this. If anyone else wants to tune in, it'll be on the podcast. But thank you so much, and again, tune in on the podcast.